So my name is Jesús Avila, but I go by Jay. I am 28 years old and I'm born and raised in Chicago. So I work for a supply chain company out in the suburbs. I won't name them because there's no free advertisements. And I work in the office there. I've been there for about 1.5 years. I enjoy it, it's a fun job, but I'm studying currently software development and coding, and that's something that I hope to get into by the end of the year, be working in that field. Lifestyle before my conversion, well, I've grown up super Catholic my whole life. There really wasn't a point where I wasn't. So I wouldn't say that I had a different way of being and then kind of became somebody else. I would say that rather than changing how I was, I kind of just matured more in my faith, and that led to just being more disciplined with the things that I wanted to do and making sure that I wasn't half in the world, half in my faith, but making sure that I was all into my faith. So I think for me, the biggest turning point was in my early 20s, when I was 20, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and that was a moment when it forced me to grow up a lot. So she had a almost 4-year-long battle with cancer, and towards the end of it, we really got to a point where we knew that she wasn't going to survive it. And I felt like God was working in my life through so many people, through Iskali, especially all of the friendships that I have here, and the people that helped carry me through that. God was preparing me for her to not be here anymore. And I feel like seeing her example of how, despite the challenges and the chemo and all of the treatment that she went through, I never once saw her frown, and I never once heard her complain. And I think seeing that just kind of lit a fire under me and helped me to know that life can kick you down and you choose how you react to it. And I know that a big reason why she was the way that she was because of her faith. And when the time came where we knew that she wasn't doing well, it was at the start of the pandemic, and things were really starting to get shut down, and we had brought her home from the hospital because they had told us she can be at the hospital where you guys can't see her, or you guys could take her home. So you might as well take her home because she was just supposed to be recuperating from a transplant that she had had. And I remember we brought her home on a Friday, and on Monday she had slipped in the shower and had to get taken to the hospital. And I remember being out and getting the call and coming back home and seeing her get carried out in the stretcher. And I don't think she even saw me. I just got to see them taking her. And that was probably towards the end of March of 2020, literally like a week into the pandemic, and it was the last time I saw her alive. She was in the hospital for another 4 weeks before she passed, towards the end of April. And I remember thinking that I would see her again, and kind of being sure that I would. And the last week that she was alive, she was just really bad. Her body was reacting badly to the transplant that she had had. And I kept thinking back to conversations that she and I had had once I was already a little older, about how she said that all she had ever prayed for when my sisters and I were growing up was that she would live long enough to see us be grown, and long enough that she knew that when she was gone that we would be okay without her. And I feel like she got what she wanted and she got what she prayed for. And I feel like to me that was a big proof that God is real and that He listens to our prayers. And so when my mom passed at the end of April, you know, I was ready for it. And I feel like God had been preparing me for years really, but especially those last months leading up to it. And when she passed, and the days that followed, I was sad, but I also felt a lot of peace. And I remember being in her funeral mass, and there was only 10 people because that's all that we were allowed to have. And I was sitting in the front of the church, and it was mostly just me feeling like she was with God, knowing that she was with God. And that, made me cry, but it also gave me the peace that I needed to be able to move on from that and to know that she was no longer suffering and there was no reason for me to be sad because she was in a better place. And weirdly enough, I feel like my faith only got stronger after that because I just knew that God had called her home and that I would see her again one day. And that was really a turning point in my life where I felt like, God wanted me to grow up and be an adult now. And she got to get me to that point. So after that, I think is when I really started to double down in my faith and take it more seriously because I knew that now it was on me. And I had such a good example with my mom and I had something to live up to. And it became not just me wanting to live a holy life as I could because I want to see God, which of course I do, but also knowing that I want to and that I will see my mother again. And so the race to heaven is not just that much more important to me because it's both now. I want to see God and I want to see my mom. And to make that happen, I have to live my life a certain way and I want to. So that was probably one of the biggest turning points in my life. And also I tell my friends this all the time, like I want to get to heaven, but I want to take you guys with me because if I show up and I show up alone, then I will have considered myself as having failed. So it's important for me to show up and bust down the door and have all of the people that I love with me to just be in eternity together. And yeah, I think that's the thing that keeps me going, that really motivates my drive and my faith, and that gives me so much love for life and the people that are in it. So I was raised very Catholic from a young age. So being literally a 5-year-old kid and being not in a youth group, but in a kids group with a bunch of little toddlers. So it was something that I grew up with my whole life. And then when I was like 10, 11 years old, becoming a monaguillo, and my sister was a lector, my parents were ministros de comunión, so we were just always around. And I was like 15 going to catecismo with my sister and like helping her teach. And then by the time I was in my later teen years, teaching myself. But the first moment that I think my faith really changed from like something that I had been participating in and like to learn about, because I'm a nerd and I like to learn about it. So even from a young age, I was already doing that. The moment that it switched from like something that I knew to something that I felt and believed was when I was 17. It was Good Friday and we were at a retreat at Nuestra Señora del Monte for Easter weekend for the youth group and the teenagers. And of all things, it was a YouTube video. I remember we were sitting up in the balcony of the gym. It was about 40 of us. And we're all crowded on this little balcony and we're watching a YouTube video of like a mix of scenes from the Passion of the Christ. And it's Jesus dying on the cross and he's seeing into the future all of the things that humanity will do. So there was, the world wars, all of the wars, the crusades that happened, the atomic bombs, slavery, all of these horrible things. And so he was seeing what he was going to die for and all of the evil that we commit. And I remember watching that video and it was like 5 minutes maybe, but something clicked in my mind and in my heart watching that, where I remember leaving that night and thinking, this is real. Like this is actually, Jesus died for me and it's not just some idea, but it's actually something that's real. And that I think from the age of 17 is when my love for God really started. Because before that it was just something I did and I enjoyed, but I was not in love yet. Challenges that I experience now, I think the biggest one is patience. And I generally am a patient person, but I feel like right now in this season of my life, I'm struggling with wanting the things that I think God wants me to have. So I really feel called to marriage and to be a father. and that's something that I really want. And I feel like God's just kind of been teasing me for a while. He's put that in my mind and in my heart, but he's making me work for it. He's making me wait, and I know that deep down that that's a good thing, but it is definitely something that I struggle with. And I feel like what I've done to kind of help myself is just surround myself with people that want the same things, that are on the same path, and then I kind of feed off of that, and my friends. So my own community of brothers where, you know, the guys we're all kind of on the same trajectory, wanting the same thing. And so it gives me a lot of peace and comfort to know that I'm not the only one that wants this but doesn't have it yet. And I think, honestly, one of the best things that we can do is surround ourselves with people that are on the same path. You know, we're not meant to do this alone, life in general, but especially not our faith. We're meant to be in community, and so I think we should take advantage of that. That's the one thing that'll help you get through the most difficult situations. I feel like really falling in love with God has helped me to try to love others better. It forced me to grow up. I feel like once I really fell in love with God, and then a couple of years passed after losing my mom, I hit a point where something kind of just clicked in my head, and I realized that no one was coming to save me. Like I had to grow up, and I had to do the things that I wanted to do myself, knowing that God helps me and there's community around me, but I had to be the one to take the first step. So I think that's something very big for me, and I try my best. I don't know how well I do it, but I try my best to be loving and to be welcoming when I meet new people. I always love meeting new people, and I love having a lot of friends, being surrounded by so many people, and just even now, like checking in with people when I can, one-on-one talks and that kind of thing. And I just try to spread love and positivity. I'm generally a happy guy, right? Like most people have never seen me mad. And that's not fake, like that's actually who I am. I feel God's love, and I feel that fire in my heart, and I just want to share that with people because I feel like there's not enough of that. My personal goals for this Lent were, one of the big ones actually was to meet with others that I just hadn't checked in with in a while. Just friends that I hadn't seen in a couple of years, just to have dinner with them and talk and have a conversation. And another big one was my St. Joseph consecration with my community. We're in the process right now. We'll be doing it in a couple of days. And that's been very fruitful for me and for my community members, just growing, right? Like as men who are chasing and working towards fatherhood and being husbands, St. Joseph has shared a lot of fruit with us and has helped all of us see how it is possible to be chaste and to be holy and to be a good man. And my advice for others this Lent would be to learn to suffer well. You know, the season of Lent is a time where Jesus, you know, literally goes into the desert for 40 days and just suffers, but he does it with a purpose. And I feel like this is a good time for us to be able to sit down and just reflect on our own lives and how there's no escaping suffering. We're all going to go through it, whether we want to or not. And it really comes down to how you look at it. You can choose to hate your life and to hate the things that are happening to you. And that's valid because it does suck a lot. But, you know, to think how Jesus went through all of the difficult things that come with being a human and did them with love and with joy and offering them to other people. So my invitation is to, whatever you're suffering now or will suffer in the future, to learn to offer that to God and to learn to do that with a smile on your face, because that is possible, and doing that will change the way that you see life, and honestly will probably just make you a generally happier person, which I think we all want. My advice would be to jump into the faith. You know, there's so many young people, so many guys specifically out in the world that are kind of just floating around, figuring out what they're supposed to do with their lives with no plan. And for me, you know, you can live in the world and you can do all that, everything that comes with that, and it'll make you happy for a moment, but then you'll get to the point where you're laying in bed at night alone and you're just with your thoughts and you don't like who you are and you don't like where your life is going. And God has given my life so much purpose and so much clarity. So I know that, you know, even if I'm suffering through things now, or there's things that I want to do that I don't, I know that it's for a purpose, and that keeping things that might seem good for me now will lead to something greater later. God will always use difficult situations to bring love and joy into our lives. So my biggest advice would be to jump into the faith, especially if you're someone that's kind of 50-50, right? Like, that's the worst place to be. I remember Father Bobby once said, it's not a cafeteria. You don't pick and choose what you want to do. You're either in or you're out. And I think too many of us are kind of just in the middle, trying to do both. And you can't, right? You can't do it, and you can't live like that and try to do it well. It just doesn't work. Jumping into your faith, jumping into the church, there's so many beautiful things in our faith that you can fall in love with, and in the sacraments, right? Like just being in Mass, receiving communion, going to confession. Those are the things that will bring true joy to someone's life, and they'll get you through anything. Looking back, I think it was something that was super necessary and that had to happen. Even all of the difficult situations with losing my mom like that, I truly believe that that had to happen for me to become a man, to grow into the person that I am now. And as much as it's hurt me and other members of my family, you know, there was no avoiding it. And so I feel like that and all the pain that came with it, the years of sadness, led to me being a person that learned how to suffer with purpose and how to love better, and being someone that can share that with others. You know, I remember sharing once with a friend here in Iskali that if anybody was going to go through it at a young age, I'm glad that it was me, because it's given me now the opportunity to, when other friends go through that, be the one that can relate and I can be a shoulder for them to cry on. And I think that's a beautiful gift that, you know, you might look at my life and think like, well, that sucks, you know, but I try to see the good in it, and I do see the good in it, the blessing that's come from that, and the beautiful gift that it is to be able to be there for somebody else, especially through a situation like that. And I think the whole thing just is leading me somewhere, right? And even if I don't entirely know what that is now, I trust that God will do what He needs to. You know, He's gonna guide me, and He's gonna walk me down the path that's gonna lead to where He wants me to be ultimately. Last thing I would want to say is that Iskali really is a beautiful gift, because it's the place where you can come and meet people, and that is so needed, because it's easy to go out into the world and meet people anywhere, right? But it's hard to find other young Catholics that are striving towards holiness, and this being a place for that is so powerful, right? It's led to me meeting, honestly, the group of people that are now my best friends and the ones that I'm closest to. And so that is something that you can't put a price on, and it's been such a blessing. So I think being here is beautiful, building relationships is beautiful, and you know, while we're here, you should strive to meet as many of these amazing people as you can, build real bonds, because you know, these could be the people that are at your wedding in 10 years, or get to see your kids grow up, or you know, get to be with you in the tough moments 20, 30, 50 years from now. And you know, don't take this for granted, and really enjoy it, and just share love with people.